Hey, all my Taurus friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today with your September 2024 monthly horoscope. These horoscopes are based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I'm talking about Taurus, I'm referring to Taurus rising as the first house and dictating the landscape of the chart. This is also applicable to Taurus sun, Taurus moon, and if you have 3 or more personal planets in the sign of Taurus, this video is for you as well. When I refer to a day and a time, it's based on the Pacific time zone, so please adjust for your location. The month starts with Uranus retrograding in your first house, and it's been in your first house since 2018, so you're pretty accustomed to the Uranian energy changing things in many ways. There's these unexpected lightning strikes with Uranus. There is this sense of innovation, revolution, wanting to move the story forward in a way like it's never been moved before. Now, part of this Uranian journey has been to break up anything that's holding you back in the way of your personal history. The Taurus energy rules the self-confidence and self-worth we have based on our childhood experience. It also rules our skills, our voice, both the singing voice, the speaking voice, and in many ways, how we use that voice to express ourselves. It rules our skills and gifts, specifically those in Taurus that rule the earth, like agriculture, cooking, working in restaurants, catering, hotels. I say hotels because there's food always attached to hotels, and there's a Venusian sense of luxury. We really see hotels more in the 12th house of Pisces, but anything that has to do with utilizing your hands, that could be craftsmanship, that could be woodworking. In any case, this is an opportunity for you to truly allow your genius to come forth and to sort of dig in and make it a priority. And this is further evidenced by Pluto. Pluto is going to go back into Capricorn, your 9th house of beliefs, of business and commerce, of publishing and branding and writing, and higher courts, higher education, and it's supported by Neptune, who is currently in your 11th house of hopes and dreams, also the large networks like the World Wide Web and the things of a mass consciousness. So where I'm going with this for my Tauruses is there is a very favorable dynamic as Uranus goes retrograde to revisit some things that might be still sitting under the surface, but they're not like they used to be. And as you dig into more of your creativity and more of that sort of willingness to I don't know, allow yourself to be raw on some level emotionally. It's not about exposing yourself. It's more about a relatability. I guess I want to put it that way. When we're looking at Capricorn, we're looking at your 9th house. And if there are fears or trepidations or concerns, then most people share those on some level. And your willingness to open up to those and the beliefs of those and kind of dusting off the cobwebs of that dynamic, your philosophies, your ideologies, you'll find yourself benefiting. Now, we also see that there's a square from your 1st house to your 4th house. Mercury has been retrograde in August, and as it moved forward, it will create a dynamic with Pluto and Neptune for the 3rd time. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but first thing I want to say is that there could be things going on within the home. For instance, you could have responsibilities to children. You could have Mercury rules so many things, our communications, the way we think, the way we speak. But here in your 4th house, there's this feeling of busyness for the activities of the home, maybe even, trying to catch the last days of the summer months. The early fall will happen at the end of September. And, there could be a lot of busyness in that house. And who knows, maybe even duties that are around the family. We see the moon here right now, and they could be in conflict to you birthing this individualization or this genius idea. Now, let me go here. I think this retrograde is also about reviewing where you've been and sort of taking an assessment And so you can plan for where you want to go when it moves forward in 2025. Uranus will retrograde for the whole rest of the year until January 30th, 2025. So it's a long transit. It only moves about 4 degrees. So each degree will represent a real anchoring in of assessing something. And here at the 27th degree, we're looking at the Gemini degree of the monkey mind as represented by Mercury. And this is going to come into play a little bit more as we move into the month, because it also rules our interaction with the internet. The United States is in a political presidential election right now, and things are very impassioned, and there's a lot going on. So that's just one thing. Okay, now we see later in the day, if we go to say 6 p.m., we will see Pluto has now moved back into Capricorn. Pluto will be in Capricorn until November 19th, 2024, and then it will re-enter Aquarius. And when it does that, it'll stay there until 2043. This is your 10th house of career. This is an opportunity to really express your genius, your uniqueness. This is what Uranus has been offering you in your first house, complementing this. This is technically your first house, and this is technically the cusp of your 9th and 10th house. So as your beliefs are rewritten, when Pluto moves into Aquarius, you could find that things not only on a technological level being available to you, but you also having the prowess and the ability to utilize them in a really great way that creates fantasy and fun. Neptune in its highest vibration would rule like things like AI, because it's sort of fantasy. And then we add this technological aspect of Uranus in your first house. That could very well be the technology of the future that creates entertainment. Now, the square here, again, we're still on the first of the month. We're a little later in the day. The square to the Leo energy of your 4th house is conflicting. And there could be just some things that come up in this last, I don't know how things are with children, but there just could be a busyness. Maybe it's the first couple of weeks of school and you're having some sense of identity or your sense of focus on what you want to create. And then your everyday activities are kind of getting in the way of, and you might have to feel like you're putting them on hold. I don't know why I want to put it that way. It's just coming through intuitively that way. Let's go to the second, where we will see at 6:55 p.m. a new moon in Virgo. And Virgo is your 5th house of creativity, pleasure, fun, enjoyment, entertainment. And it's at the 11th degree, which to me is very significant because I see series of numbers and I see the 11 coming up a lot. I see this new moon planting the seeds for mastering my thoughts. The mastering of thoughts is not actually wrestling them to the ground. The mastering of thoughts is the recognizing of the loop, the imprint, and then being able to see it enough to assert myself into a new direction, into something that gives me a little grace through the process. So we see this as this moon is making a direct aspect to Saturn in Pisces in your 11th house. And this to me feels like there's the potential that, I don't know, Saturn could be dampening something, could be making you feel like, everything is so far off. This 11th degree in the sign of Virgo is really about the thought process, the beginning of something, the journey of staying focused, the journey of kind of dispensing logic, which is the argument here over with Saturn, because from my perspective, Saturn is tasking us to create a strong dynamic with our inner voice, with the soul that lives outside of the human experience that is part of you. And this connection here to this building, this structure can sometimes be opposing to, what needs to get done in a practical way. And I think that planting the seeds for the understanding that this is part of the process. So you sit and you connect with your intention when you're doing anything that's important to you, anything that you find enjoyable, anything that you find creative. This is just really being aware. Now we have some things going on in the background here as well. We have this quincunx between Mars and Pluto. So Pluto's still at 29 degrees. So there's my 11 again, reducing down to an 11. We see Neptune is at 29 degrees. There's the 11 that rings back to the new moon of 11 degrees of Virgo. And now Mars is at 28 degrees, which reduces down to a 10. And just to be, for giggles, 56 minutes, which reduces down to an 11. So this very much is planting the seeds in the dark of night about putting in some kind of daily routine process awareness, even of that you are willing to walk through a period of time where the knowing will not come from the earth plane. Taurus wants to see things in the earth plane, and this Virgo new moon wants to see things in the earth plane. But first, we've got to dig to the underbelly of where there are fears and trepidations or beliefs. Again, the ninth house rules your belief system. It rules, your expansion. And this can feel a little bit constricted because there's an underbelly of potentially not feeling good enough or not having worked hard enough or something, because this is a blind spot to taking action. And Mars is about to go into its fall in Cancer. And Cancer is your third house of how you think, how you speak, how you interact with your neighborhood, your roadways. So there's going to be a slowing down period. And Mars seems to be, again, wanting to move quickly. And here is Neptune in your 11th house saying, let's look at the foundation of how we set out on this journey, because Neptune rules the seas of emotion. So while Neptune may feel erosive to the human, when and we must surrender to the tides of the sea. Of course, we're not strong enough to fight them, but when we know how to work with them, we know when to swim and when to lay on our back and float. And I think that is what this Neptune is offering here, is this sort of opportunity to lay back in your dreams, not try to take action just yet, because there's still something underneath the surface that will be supported by your intention at this new moon to put in process and structure, to focus in on your revolution, on your what you want in your first house, these last degrees of birthing the new genius inside of you into the material world. It's very exciting. And we know that, we've got this expansion of Jupiter in your second house. Now, Jupiter is not in the greatest favor in Gemini. It is in its detriment. And yet I have this weird resistance to that, because wherever Jupiter goes, Jupiter feels sort of entitled to be there. It's very big and very expansive. So the challenge here is for Jupiter to not get ahead of himself, but to check in on the details, to look in on, how that we implement that. And I think that is how you implement it, is planting the seeds of belief. So while the new moon is not necessarily making any aspects, there's a loose square here, which, is kind of, it's nice that it's loose, but it could be part of it is that you have to stretch beyond what you have experienced with your eyes and start to experience something with your heart. Now we see Venus is in her rulership. This is all at the time of the new moon. Venus is also conjunct the supergalactic center at 2 degrees, 22 minutes of Libra. This is a point in the Shapley cluster within our universe where she's creating a relationship with herself. She is source energy. Her ability to draw in all the resources that she needs is available to her as she strengthens her connection to her inner knowing. Venus rules the feminine, the receptive energy. And now the South Node here is asking her to be egoless in her pursuits. And that means that sometimes people may not understand why you're putting yourself first. This is your ruling planet, Taurus. This is the planet that you hold dearest, that is who you are in essence, and that is a creator, a birther, somebody who creates beauty and something that's comfortable and something that entertains and feels it's the reasons that we want to go home, the reasons we want to partner, the reasons we want to grow. It's the finer things in life that are being offered, but the health of those dynamics directly relates to the relationship you have with yourself. And because we're in the physical, sometimes it's hard to see how that really makes sense. But because here's that opposition to individualistic Aries, your 12th house of the things that your ancestral past are stretching for this pioneering spirit of your own adventure, the one that you want creatively. And it is supported by Pluto here. So this is all at the new moon. Everybody's having a conversation that's pretty powerful and intense, meaning all the planets. Now let's go to the 4th. Wait, I think I'm going to go to 6 p.m. And Mars will have moved into Cancer. Now, this is significant in it's still in this quincunx with Pluto, and it's entering its fall. So it's really kind of like, oh dear, Mars is so annoyed right now. This is your 3rd house of thinking. This could feel like things are slowing down. Mars is not necessarily emotional unless it's mad. It's not warm and fuzzy all the time. And Cancer is so warm and fuzzy that there is a collision of fire and water, which creates steam. Now, the initial move into this energy for Mars is annoying because he was just zipping along in the Aries sign of Gemini, and now he's got to slow his roll. He's got to feel the emotions. He's got to feel everything that's going on in his own individual world. And when we look at this, he's got to feel what he's thinking, what he's absorbing himself into. We've got such a patriotic energy, or the land from which you come, your roots are strong here, and Mars will fight for its country here, but it also has to sort of adapt to this emotion that it's not used to. And I think that's where Pluto being in Capricorn might even be the emotions of vulnerability, the emotions of, if I break the rules of engagement in some way or another, what kind of price will I pay? Because Mars can feel like he'll be sent off to another land to fight another day, but he's not exactly, might not feel embraced. So this is kind of a challenging energy a little bit. And I think it's more of an internal job because it's the house of thinking and the house of learning and speaking, meaning Gemini. Now we're overlaying this energy of Cancer that's so emotional and so nurturing. And so you might need to go on some sort of media detox, Taurus. No joke. Okay. So now let's go to the 9th. And Mercury will re-enter Virgo and go back to 12 o'clock. And I want to do it at 12 o'clock because you'll see where am I? Oh, here we are. Mercury re-entering Virgo is, first of all, it's entering rulership. It's entering a place of exaltation. So this is your 5th house lit up. Really good time to take advantage of Mercury's energy here. But before you do, there's this sort of continued story that started at the end of August. Mercury's now, for the 3rd time, the focal point of Pluto and of Neptune in this yod, this transit yod, I like to call it. And we know that Pluto and Mars are in a challenging dynamic. So there is something that is brewing in the way that you're thinking and feeling and how you're contemplating, your personal pleasure, how you want to move forward, how you want to express yourself in the world. You may find you're inspired by maybe some things that are happening in your 2nd house of Cancer. Maybe Mars is now sort of, I think by the time we get to the end of the month, Mars is figured out how to make the steam motivate you know, the steam engine is where I'm going with that. And right now, I think that light is starting to dawn as Mercury and Mars have a conversation. Now we still have this sort of square of it's really the Mercury can be so dominant in the sign of Virgo because it's so well placed that it can argue with Uranus's renovation, innovation, liberation, rebellion. And it can say, no, 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 you know, we have to do, this is how we're of service. This is how we really, you know, are supposed to show up. And, you know, here we have these themes of these ones again, they're staying, these are long-term transits. I get it. But the ones are so important when the apex is the monkey mind. And there's a potential new beginning and a potential for new thoughts and new processes that allow you to express yourself more with more pleasure and more joy. You know, again, this is the house where the performer lives, where the comedian lives, where the conception of children is. You know, where your high school experience is, where romance is still fun and new, and it's not yet killed you. Okay, let's go to the 17th, where we will have we're starting our eclipse season, the second eclipse season of the year. This is a lunar eclipse at 7:34 p.m. in the sign of Pisces. And Pisces is your 11th house. Oh, we get off this. This is pretty significant because this full moon is conjunct Neptune. This is very emotional, very the illumination could be on some level eroding. It could feel a little bit challenging, but I think that it could potentially be very beneficial in the long run. The trine from the sun to Pluto and the sun to Uranus kind of tells me that there's the potential for you to see something new inside your network. There may be almost like I don't know why I want to say it. Sometimes we cling to old structures, old friends. The 11th house is the friendship house, old groups, or even old dreams that are not quite big enough or broad enough or futuristic enough. And I think that Neptune is super, you know, it's so creative and so, you know, lyrical and musical and the fluid movement of dance and creativity and filmography. I think this could illuminate something really amazing. It could even be the end of holding yourself back on some level because the moon reflects the light of the sun. And here, as you shine your creativity out, it kind of can go two ways. It could either be feeling like you in the illumination that, you know, oh my God, why have I been holding myself back, that you still hold yourself back, or you liberate yourself from that and go, okay, well, I wasn't ready until now, and now I'm ready. So this is really, and it's an eclipse, so it could take 6 months for this to reveal itself, because that's how eclipses roll. They're long-term influences. And we see here that in your third house of Cancer, that Mars is now in a T-square, being the focal point of the nodes. This is important because, you know, the south node is a point of erosion. It's a point of release in many ways. And some people call it loss, but I think it depends on what you're releasing if it's really loss. This is your 6th house of work, of slavery, in the form of working for somebody else, not for your own enjoyment. And Libra is so cooperative that this could be this opportunity for you within your 3rd house to start to dream bigger about the things that you want to do, both creatively. I mean, who knows, with this Cancer energy, you may start thinking about how you want to, you know, support your everyday life by shifting things that have to do with your home life or with how you perceive your home, the safety of your home. Mars will protect its home here. It really will. And but it doesn't like being emotional about it. And then we have this stretch over here to the Aries energy, which is your 12th house. So there could be something here where the tension lies in that Mars rules that 12th house, and there could be some stuff back in your karmic choices where, you were so willing to fight for others that you didn't fight for yourself. When Aries is your 12th house, you don't see yourself. You don't, or people don't see you, don't feel recognized. There's a sense of invisibility, and the North Node is stretching for an experience. And I think maybe the reason that you haven't felt seen is because in the past, if you're too harsh, if you're too wanting to move the story forward, and we would have kind of seen that in the second house of Gemini, because you would have started, interacting with Gemini. There's always interaction with others. And this is giving you an opportunity to emote while still being individualistic within your cooperative relationships. But so much awareness and consciousness is required for these things. But on an eclipse, I think it's a good idea to put in the extra effort. All right, let's go now to the 22nd, where the sun will have moved into Libra. I'm going to move a little later because Venus will also move into Scorpio. So I'm going to go to 9 p.m. And I think this is significant. I mentioned earlier about the supergalactic center. We saw Venus crossing over that point earlier in the month, and now the sun is. So there's this really seeing oneself as source energy. Now, the sun is not in a good favor in Libra. It's considered it's in fall. It's a weak point. It's where it doesn't feel heard, doesn't feel valued. And, oftentimes that ego, the assertion, the self, the Leo energy that the sun represents, me energy of I want to be the performer, is dumbed down in this sign of cooperation. And yet it's sitting on a point where it will be exact in a minute, at 2 degrees, 22 minutes Libra, of that relationship with self is key to those other relationships. And sometimes we have to, or get to be egoless to the opinions of others while we self-care, while we take care of self, so that we bring that into our relationships in a better way, meaning in a healthier way. We see Venus has moved into Scorpio, where she's considered in detriment. When we're in the opposite sign of rulership, there's this feeling of being out of control, very uncomfortable, feeling out of, a lack of ease. And I think it's most challenging because she's just been in her rulership, and she's just been on the voice of Spica, or on the star Spica, the voice of angels. And now she's having to sort of look at where there's power and control over her in her partnerships as she traverses this house of Scorpio. When she gets to 2 degrees of Scorpio, she's going to be on a point called the Shapley attractor. And that is a point where we release false attachments or things that are not aligned to our deeper truth. So here we see she's making challenging aspects to Neptune in the quincunx. She's making challenging aspects to Saturn in the square and a half, and that square to Pluto. So here's that, there may be a situation where some of your friends or some of the networks that you're working with, you don't realize are not really serving you, or they're not seeing you in some way. And Pluto would be bringing up that, deep psychological dynamic that, of your belief system, of even potentially your fears, and trying to please the crowd. And I think that as Venus steps into Scorpio energy in modern times and realizes that this can be a place of power for her, a place where she can understand her own psychology and use it for her betterment, use it for her as a tool, then she can create a lot of wealth for herself here. She can create, we're in a money house with Venus representing a money sign, and money is a representation of our self-worth. So while these aspects aren't easy, they are doable. It just has that tenacity, that connection to spirit, and that connection to a strong sense of my soul, and using a daily practice, I really think really moves the story forward quickly. All right, let's go over to the 26th. Now Mercury will have moved into Libra and is in a conversation with the sun and the south node, all conjunct that supergalactic center. So yes, the conversations about the self, the relationship with self. How does that really work? Where am I? Who am I? And again, when I say the self, I mean this in a way that how can you, with Libra being your 6th house, Taurus, right now on this day, we see Taurus as the 1st house. So this is your chart. This is giving you an opportunity to create such a strong relationship with yourself as source energy that you know that your creativity can be birthed into your community. And even though you may not have gotten to a point of actually creating abundance yet, because Venus is in kind of challenging dynamics, she doesn't look like she's making money here yet. It could be the focus here and utilizing that release from the partial lunar eclipse that you start to step into this vibration more powerfully. Because now we see trines to Pluto. Pluto is power, and then Uranus is liberation. And then we have the sun, which is your ego and your ambition, and thoughts of your ego and your ambition. And the possibilities are endless when you connect to spirit. The South Node is a very spiritual point because it's basically where the human walks through with no earthly needs. Although I don't think that that's really the point. I think we're supposed to experience the earthly needs here. And Taurus loves earthly resources and loves to enjoy good food and nice surroundings, nice pillows and couches and blankies and clothing and looking good and being spiffy and then stretching your skills as well. So whatever you want to be when you grow up, I don't care if you're 9 or 95, this is an opportunity to start to really connect with that and put intention towards it, which is focused thought. All right, let's go to the last day of the month. And I'm going to go back to 12 o'clock. We see that the sun and Mercury are conjunct at 8 degrees. Now, when a planet is that close to within a couple of degrees of the sun, it is called combust. It's considered drowned out, eclipsed essentially. And here, I think potentially there could be a bit of a transformation. That 8th degree is scorpionic in nature, it's Plutonian in nature. And maybe these thoughts of actually implementing, being able to get the kind of job you want or work in the creative environment you want are starting to sink in and permeate, and your monkey mind is calming down because your sun is eclipsing it. And then now the South Node is moving forward. So this egoless part of other people's opinions right now may be, less of a voice. It looks to me like you're hearing yourself more rather than the outside voice of everyday life. I also want to say that, there is, a presidential election going on, and we're here in the sign that represents diplomacy. And, there also is the potential that some people will be very unconscious, and that 8th degree could be a challenging degree where you want to speak and you are afraid to speak because you're afraid to create problems. But I want to offer this. These planets are still in orb to the super galactic center. So you don't need to tell anyone your thoughts if you don't want to. You don't need to share anything that is not, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. I'll just put it that way. So I think that's important to know. And we see that we have a nice aspect between Saturn and Mars. And we have Saturn and Venus. While Venus is a little bit, she's not in the tighter orb, we see Mars and Saturn are exact. And this is really an opportunity to take that Cancer energy of the 3rd house, brave in thought, and this is the Venusian degree here. 14 degrees is your degree, Taurus. And now Saturn's like going backwards, but it's still saying just put some structure into that, into your hopes and dreams. Everyday practice of reminding yourself that, it isn't fun if it isn't a little scary. Anything that's easy, the human tends to ignore. And this half square to Pluto could be the very thing that you just don't see, how sometimes fears, transformed are very, exciting and exhilarating. This is a trine aspect. So this is not feelings necessarily like the man is holding me back. It could indicate to think twice as you post on the internet or interact with social groups, because again, it's a very transformational time. And People are impassioned, to say the least, and they will be impassioned about their money. Scorpio is your seventh house of partnerships. So this transit of Venus is giving you an opportunity to understand how your ruling planet feels when she's got a lot of other people's opinions before her, because that would echo back to trusting what you experienced on the supergalactic center in that relationship with yourself. Because I think this is super important as this transit sort of kind of dominates, and then this Venus transit is supported by the bravery of looking a little bit deeper into how much will I let, structure dictate who and what I am. There wouldn't be rock and roll if somebody, I want to say Elvis Presley, hadn't broken the mold. If we didn't have Led Zeppelin, there wouldn't be hard rock. I mean, look at Billie Eilish, there's so many. I want to use that as an example because of the musical nature of Pisces, but you got to stretch your neck out sometimes to really experience greatness and trust your inner voice versus listening to the crowd. And that might be a little bit of what's been going on for Venus. And here she's trying to feel a little braver, and she will get braver in October. All right, that's it for September 2024. Again, my name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer. Everything I do is through my own weird brain. I marry a bunch of different systems together and I let the stars tell me a story. And that's how I get my information. So I hope you like this. I hope you subscribe. I hope you share and join me Sunday mornings live at 11 a.m. Pacific time. That's where we gather and I do a tarot card and an angel reading and get the source and angel's advice for traversing the week ahead's transits. All right, my Tauruses, I will see you in October. Have a lovely month. Bye-bye.